know how silence can be comforting, until it's not. That was my house at midnight, too quiet for comfort. The kind of silence where your heartbeat sounds louder than it should. I had just moved into that place a week ago. A small 2-story house on the edge of town. Cheap rent, quiet neighborhood, and a big old TV left behind by the previous owners. I didn't have much furniture yet, so most nights I'd sit on the floor, order some takeout, and let the television keep me company. That night it was raining hard. The power had flickered a few times, but it was still holding. I remember sitting cross-legged in front of that TV, flipping through random channels. Infomercials, reruns, static, the usual late-night garbage. Then I saw it. Channel 99. It wasn't listed anywhere on the guide. No program info, no network logo. Just static. But I swear I saw something in it. Not shapes, not faces. Just flickers that looked a little too deliberate, like someone trying to send a message through the noise. At first I thought maybe the rain was messing with the signal. But then I noticed something weird on the sound. Static usually hisses evenly, right? This one pulsed like a heartbeat. It almost synced with mine. Curiosity got the better of me. I leaned forward and turned up the volume. The white fuzz on the screen seemed to swirl faster, forming what looked like an outline. A human figure. For a moment I laughed nervously. Maybe I was just tired. But when the outline moved, stepped closer, I felt every hair on my arm stand up. Then the TV went black. No static. No sound. Just a pitch-dark reflection of me sitting there. I stared at my reflection, half expecting it to move. And then it did. The reflection smiled. I didn't. I jumped up, heart pounding, yanked the power cord out of the wall. The screen went completely dead and I backed away slowly. My mind was racing. It had to be some kind of glitch, maybe leftover signal interference. I turned off all the lights and tried to shake it off, but sleep wouldn't come easy. Every time thunder rolled, I swore I heard faint static coming from somewhere in the living room. Even though the TV was unplugged, that's when I noticed something else. The power light on the TV, the small red LED that shows when it's off, was still glowing and it was flickering. Like Morse code. I grabbed my phone, tried to record it, but the camera wouldn't focus. The light blinked faster. 3 long flashes, too short. Then it stopped. Before I could process what that meant, the screen flicked back on. By itself. No power, no signal. Just a single line of text across the static. Don't turn away. I froze. My throat went dry. I took a step closer and whispered, "Who's there?" The static pulsed and then a voice came through. Low, distant, distorted, like it was coming from underwater. "You shouldn't have found me." I stumbled backward, knocking over an empty bottle. My breathing was out of control. When I turned around to grab my phone again, the screen had changed. Now it showed a live feed of my living room, the exact angle where I was standing. Except, in the feed there was someone behind me. I spun around instantly. No one. Just darkness and the soft hum of rain against the windows. When I turned back to the screen, the figure was closer. Right behind where I stood. Its outline was clearer now. Tall, thin, completely black, with a static haze where its face should have been. Then the voice whispered again, "Don't look away." The screen flickered, and for a split second the figure moved out of frame, like it had stepped forward. The camera angle on the screen shook violently, and then the image cut to black again. That's when the lights in my house went out. The sound of thunder rattled the windows, and I felt the pressure shift, that heavy feeling you get when something's in the room with you. I backed into the hallway, using my phone's flashlight. The beam shook as my hands trembled. The air felt charged, like static clinging to my skin. And then from the living room I heard it again, faint but unmistakable. Shh. 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 The TV had turned itself back on. I took one careful step forward, whispering to myself, "It's just a power surge, that's all." But when I reached the doorway, I saw something that made me forget how to breathe. The static on the screen wasn't random anymore. It was forming words, slowly, like someone typing through the static. Channel 99 is open. That was the first night. The night I realized something was trying to come through, and it wasn't done with me yet. Sleep never came that night. Even after the static stopped, I sat there in the dark, clutching my phone like it was a weapon. Every creak, every shift of the rain made me flinch. When dawn finally broke, I told myself it had to be a glitch, some weird electrical interference. Maybe the storm messed with the wiring. That's what I wanted to believe. But when I unplugged the TV completely, the red light was still blinking. Slowly, patiently, almost like it was breathing. That morning I called the landlord. He laughed it off, said that TV had been there for years, belonged to some old guy who lived alone before me. Probably just needs a new plug, he said. Then, as if remembering something, he added, "Don't mess with Channel 99, though. That's not a real channel. You probably picked up one of those scrambled emergency frequencies. Happens sometimes." But his tone changed mid-sentence, like he didn't even believe what he was saying. I decided to take the TV out to the garage that afternoon. It was heavy, but I dragged it across the floor and shoved it against the far wall. Problem solved. Or so I thought. By evening, the house felt wrong again. Too still, too quiet. Even the rain had stopped. But there was this low constant vibrating through the floorboards. I checked my phone. The signal was dead. No Wi-Fi, no service. Then I heard it. That faint static sound again, from the garage. I told myself it couldn't be. I had unplugged everything, but as I stepped closer to the garage door, the sound grew louder. My chest tightened. I reached for the handle. It was ice cold. When I opened it, the darkness inside felt thick, like walking into smoke. And there it was. The TV was back on, no power cord, no cable. Just glowing static filling the room with that pale white light. And on the screen, a door. A simple wooden door filmed in some shaky, low-quality footage. As I watched, the camera moved closer to that door. Each step made the static hum louder. Then the doorknob turned, but the door didn't open in the video. It opened in my house. Somewhere behind me, I heard a click. A slow creak followed. I turned around. My kitchen door was swinging open on its own. My mouth went dry. The static from the garage grew louder, almost like it was laughing. I took a shaky step forward and whispered, "Who's there?" A faint voice echoed through the house, the same distorted one from before. "You left the channel open." I froze. The air felt charged again, that same electric tension crawling over my skin. From the corner of my eye, I caught movement. Something, a shadow, slipped across the floor. Not cast by anything. It was something. It darted from the kitchen doorway to the hallway and stopped right at the base of the stairs. I shined my phone's flashlight. Nothing there. But when I looked at the floor, I saw footprints, wet, muddy, and leading upstairs. I should have run, but I didn't. Something inside me, curiosity, fear, maybe both, pulled me up those stairs one shaky step at a time. Each creak of the wood echoed in the silence. The hum from the TV faded behind me, replaced by the sound of whispering, soft, overlapping voices. They weren't clear, just fragments. "Open. Let him in. Behind you." My heart nearly stopped at that last one. I turned instantly, light shaking, breathing sharp, but no one was there. Then I noticed the reflection. In the window at the end of the hall, I could see my own silhouette. And behind me, another figure, taller, darker, motionless. When I spun around again, the hallway was empty. But the reflection stayed. It didn't move when I did, it just smiled. I backed into my bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold my phone. The whispering had stopped. Only the static hum remained. soft, constant, pulsing through the walls. Then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, climbing the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. They stopped right outside my door. I held my breath. Silence. Then 3 knocks. Not loud, not forceful, just calm. I whispered, "Go away." But the voice on the other side replied, clear as day now, deep, distorted, but human enough to chill my bones. "You brought me through." I stumbled back, kicking over a chair. My phone light flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the room. Then, from the corner, the static sound grew louder, like it was leaking from the walls. White fuzz began to form on the mirror near my bed. And in that haze, I saw a face, pale, hollow eyes, wide mouth twisting unnaturally. It was the same face I'd seen smiling in the TV reflection. Then it spoke again, this time through the mirror itself. "You shouldn't have looked away." The glass cracked, a thin line first. Then more, spiderwebbing outward until the entire mirror shattered with a sound like a scream. I covered my ears, but the static roared in my head. I could feel it inside me, like it wasn't sound anymore, but energy. When I opened my eyes, everything went still. No sound, no movement. The only thing left was my reflection, 1,000 broken pieces on the floor. Except one shard still had that same smiling face, and it blinked. That was the moment I realized. Whatever was in that TV wasn't trapped anymore. It was here, with me, and it wasn't leaving. Morning came, but the light didn't feel real. Everything in the house looked washed out, like color had been drained overnight. The air still carried that faint electric taste, the scent you get before a thunderstorm, except the sky was clear. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't even look at it. But I could still hear it, somewhere deep in the walls. A soft pulse of static, like a heartbeat behind plaster. I packed a bag. Wallet, phone, car keys. I told myself I was leaving. Maybe stay with a friend for a few nights. But when I tried to open the front door, it wouldn't budge. The locks turned fine, but the door felt glued shut, like the wood itself was holding me in. "Come on," I whispered, pulling harder. The handle tore loose in my hand. Behind me, from the living room, a faint whisper answered, "You can't leave." "The channel's still open. I spun around. No one." Just the TV screen in the corner flickering on by itself. I swear I unplugged that thing yesterday. But there it was, humming quietly, filling the air with white fuzz and a faint glow. Only this time, the static wasn't random. It was forming images. At first, I thought they were just noise patterns. But then the shapes became familiar. A staircase, a hallway, a door at the end. My door. I stared, frozen, as the camera on screen began to move, descending the same staircase that led to my bedroom. The creaking steps echoed perfectly with the ones in my house. Then the feed turned left, showing the living room. In the back of my head, I blinked. When I opened my eyes again, the image on the screen had changed. Now it showed words, distorted but legible. "Step inside." A cold breeze swept through the room. The curtains fluttered, though the windows were shut tight. I could feel pressure in the air, that same hum from before, growing louder, closer. Something inside me whispered to listen. Another voice screamed to run. I took one step toward the screen. The picture flickered. Then the static warped into something new. A tunnel of light and shadow, spinning slowly, like a storm of white noise. The hum deepened until it felt like it was pulling at my chest. For a split second, I felt gravity shift. When I blinked again, the room was gone. Everything around me was gray and flickering, like I'd stepped inside the TV itself. Static snow drifted through the air like dust, and far in the distance, a figure stood, tall, thin, blurred around the edges. It turned its head toward me, though it didn't have a face. And then, without moving, its voice filled the air. "You crossed over." My voice cracked. "Where am I?" Between signals, between worlds, the static pulsed with each word. The ground beneath my feet rippled like water. Images flashed in the air around me, moments from my own life. Me unpacking boxes, eating dinner alone, staring at the TV, then flashes of someone else. An old man sitting where I sat, eyes wide, mouth open in silent horror. He found the channel first, the voice said. He opened it halfway. I swallowed hard. What do you want from me? To finish it. The static storm surged around me, rising like a wave. I felt something tugging at my body. Not physical, more like a magnetic pull on my mind. The figure raised its hand. Instantly my ears filled with white noise, screaming loud enough to make me collapse. I tried to shout, but my voice vanished into the roar. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the living room. The TV was off. The lights were normal. The clock on the wall ticked quietly. Had I blacked out? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. Welcome back. You brought him through. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor, the screen cracking on impact. And from that tiny fracture, faint static hissed out like the sound of breathing. Then, from the reflection on the dark TV screen, I saw movement. Behind me, slowly I turned. There he was, the same figure from the static realm standing in my hallway. No face, no eyes, just darkness where a human outline should be. And the voice whispered one last time, close enough that I felt it inside my skull. Channel 99 never closes. I didn't leave the house for 3 days. I couldn't. Every time I tried to open the door, that same low hum filled the air, like the world outside didn't exist anymore. The static had followed me everywhere now. It wasn't just the TV. It came from the lights, the walls, even the silence between my own heartbeats. Sometimes, when I blinked, I'd catch flashes of that other place, the gray world beyond the screen, for just a second before reality snapped back. I hadn't slept since the night it came through. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel him standing at the edge of my bed. By the third night, I realized something. The static wasn't random. It was pulsing in a rhythm, not just noise, a pattern. I started recording it on my phone, playing it back at half speed, trying to see if there was meaning hidden in the sound, and there was. A voice buried beneath the distortion. Faint, broken, but human. Find the tape. The word hit me like a shock. Tape. I searched the house for hours, room by room. In the basement, under a pile of old boxes, I finally found it. A VHS cassette with no label. Only a faded piece of tape with one word written on it in trembling handwriting. Play. I didn't want to touch it. Every part of me screamed not to. But I also knew, whatever was happening, whatever came through that channel, this tape was the key. I went to the garage where the TV still sat, unplugged but somehow alive. The VHS slot below the screen slid open on its own, as if waiting. My hands shook as I fed the tape in. The screen flashed white, then black. Then an image appeared. A grainy shot of a man sitting in the same spot I was. He looked terrified. His hair was gray, his eyes wide and hollow. He stared straight into the camera and whispered, "If you're watching this, it means you tuned in too." The man leaned closer. Behind him, the static began to swirl, forming that same doorway I'd seen before. "Channel 99 isn't a frequency," he said. "It's a bridge between our world and theirs. They send the signal through broken devices, TVs, radios, phones. Once you see them, they see you." He paused, glancing over his shoulder. The static behind him started to pulse, faster and faster. "I tried to shut it down," he continued. "But it needs energy, living energy. The longer it stays open, the more it feeds. Don't listen to the voice. Don't let it speak through you." He began trembling violently. His voice turned desperate. "You have to burn the signal." "Burn the tape cut off." The screen turned to pure static. Then, from inside the speakers, that deep voice echoed again. Not the man's, but his. "The thing in the static. He lied to you." I stumbled backward. The static shifted again, this time showing me my own living room. Me, standing right there, only the version of me on the screen wasn't moving. It was frozen in place, eyes blank, mouth open like it was screaming silently. Then, the me on the screen turned its head toward me, and it smiled. I grabbed the TV by the frame and yanked the tape out. The screen went dark instantly. No static, no hum, just silence. I ran upstairs, heart pounding, threw the tape into the sink and poured lighter fluid over it. My hands shook so hard I could barely flick the lighter. When the flame caught, the plastic began to melt. But instead of smoke, static poured out. A wave of white haze filled the kitchen, crackling like electricity. From inside it, I heard the man's voice again, the one from the tape. "You can't destroy it. It's already inside the signal." The haze twisted upward, forming a vague human shape. No eyes, no face, just distortion. I backed against the wall, whispering, "What do you want from me?" The static figure tilted its head slowly, to stay. Then it stepped forward and passed through me. I fell to the floor, gasping like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. For a moment I saw nothing but flashing light, fragments of the other world, shards of memory that weren't mine. An empty town. Dozens of TV screens glowing in the dark. Faces trapped inside them, mouths moving but no sound coming out. And over it all, that endless whisper, "Welcome to Channel 99. When I came to, the tape was gone. The fire had burned out. But etched into the counter in melted plastic were 4 words. "See you tonight, Aaron." That's when I realized it knew my name, and it was never going to leave. It's been 3 days since the tape burned. 3 days since the static figure whispered my name. I haven't turned on a single screen since. No phone, no laptop, no TV. I've unplugged everything, cut the power, covered the mirrors, and taped over every camera lens I could find. And still, I can feel him here, like electricity crawling beneath my skin. Sometimes I hear faint whispers through the floorboards, or see flickers of white light where shadows should be. Channel 99 isn't just a frequency anymore. It's alive, and it's using me to keep the signal open. I started hearing the hum again last night, faint, coming from under the floor. When I pressed my ear to the wood, I realized it wasn't a sound at all. It was a voice whispering through the wires. "Broadcast begins soon." That's when I knew it wasn't feeding off the TV anymore. It was feeding off me. Every time I thought about it, the air shimmered. The corners of the room would blur, and in those distortions I could see flashes of static, like my reality was glitching. I tried to leave again this morning. Packed my things, opened the front door, and there it was. Outside, the world wasn't the same. Everything, the trees, the road, the sky, was flickering in and out, like I was looking through a bad connection. Houses melted into static outlines, then reappeared, and faint voices echoed from nowhere, repeating the same phrase, "Stay tuned." I slammed the door shut and backed away, my breath shaking. Then I saw movement. The TV in the corner of the living room flickered on again, even though there hadn't been power in the house for days. The screen showed a single camera feed. Me. I was standing exactly where I was now, frozen in place, staring at the TV, and beneath my reflection, glowing white text began to type itself across the screen. Live broadcast starting. I screamed and threw the remote at the screen. The image didn't break. It absorbed the impact like water. Ripples spread across the screen, and for a moment, I saw the other side again, that gray, storm-like world made of static. And in the middle of it, the figure stood waiting. Same tall, thin shape, only this time I could almost make out a face beneath the distortion. My face. "We're one now," it whispered. "You opened the bridge. You are the signal. The The static surged out of the screen like a storm, wrapping around me, pulling me closer. I tried to resist, digging my heels into the floor, but the pull was too strong. The room dissolved. The air turned electric, and suddenly, I wasn't standing in my house anymore. I was inside the broadcast. Everything around me was noise and shadow. Endless TVs floating in a void, each showing different faces, different lives. Some screamed silently. Others just stared, blank and motionless. And then, among them, I saw the old man again, the one from the tape. He looked right at me, his expression hollow. "I told you to burn the signal," he said, "but you can't destroy it." "You can only pass it on." I shook my head, shouting, "No, I won't!" But then from behind me I heard the static voice again, calm, inevitable. Everyone watches something. Everyone tunes in eventually. 1,000 screens lit up at once. Flashes of people sitting in their homes, flipping through channels, landing on channel 99. And on each screen, they saw me. My face. My voice. "Welcome back," I said, though I didn't mean to speak. The words came out on their own. "You're watching channel 99. The static storm swallowed everything. When the light faded, I was back in my living room. The TV was off. The house was quiet again. For a moment, I thought maybe it was finally over. Then my phone buzzed. One new notification, Live, the static on channel 99, one viewer. And the reflection on the black screen smiled. I live alone. I've lived alone for 3 years now. It's quiet, simple, and exactly the way I like it. Most nights I work late, come home, make coffee, and watch something boring until I fall asleep. No noise, no people, no surprises, but that night was different. It started with a sound that didn't belong in an empty house. It was almost midnight when I heard it. A soft, slow thump, 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 echoing from the hallway outside my bedroom. I froze. At first I thought maybe it was the house settling, old floorboards creaking from the cold, but then the steps came again, steady, deliberate, human. I sat up, every muscle tense, listening. No one should have been there. My front door was locked. The windows were shut. I even checked them before bed. I always do. The steps stopped right outside my door. For a full minute, there was silence. Then, 3 slow knocks. I couldn't move. I just stared at the door, waiting for another sound. Nothing. Finally, I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer, but the doorknob turned. It moved just a little, enough to make the latch click, and then stopped. I didn't even breathe. My eyes were locked on that handle, waiting for it to turn again. But instead, something else happened. From the other side of the door, a whisper, soft, almost like a breath. "Don't." My chest went cold. I whispered back, "Don't what?" Silence. Then the footsteps started again, this time moving away down the hall, fading one by one until the house was quiet again. I didn't sleep that night. I sat there until sunrise, lights on, staring at the door. When daylight finally came, I checked the hallway. Nothing there. The floor was empty. No footprints. No sign anyone had been inside. I told myself it had to be a dream. Just a mix of exhaustion and an overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew I'd heard it. The rhythm. The weight. The voice. And when I checked my phone's audio recorder, the one I always leave running at night for white noise, I nearly dropped it. There it was. Clear as day, footsteps, knocks, and then that whisper. "Don't." Except now, there was another voice in the background. Fainter, hidden beneath the static. "He's awake." That was the moment I realized. Whatever walked those halls wasn't a dream. It was real, and it already knew I was listening. By the next night, I had convinced myself it was nothing. A trick of sound, a creaky floorboard, something rational and something safe. But that illusion didn't last long. I had left the hallway light on this time. The faint glow spilled into my bedroom through the cracked door, just enough to let me see the outline of the walls. It made me feel a little better. Until around 1:43 a.m., that's when the sound came back. Not footsteps this time. Not at first, it was humming. A low, tuneless hum, like someone trying to remember a song they hadn't heard in years. It came from the same spot, just beyond my bedroom door. I turned my head slowly, heart hammering, and stared at the light creeping in from the hallway. The humming stopped. Then the floor creaked. Thump, thump, thump. The footsteps again. Slow, heavy, moving closer. I reached for my phone, trying to turn on the flashlight, but my hand was shaking so badly that I dropped it. It hit the floor with a dull clack, and the sound stopped instantly. For several seconds there was nothing but silence. Then a whisper. "You heard me." I froze. That voice, low, male, raspy, came from right behind the door. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't even blink. The air in the room felt wrong, thick, charged, like the pressure before a storm. Then slowly I saw a shadow begin to form beneath the door. Feet, bare feet. They stood there for a moment, unmoving. Then they turned sideways, as if the person was leaning closer to the crack between the door and the frame. I stared at the gap near the floor, terrified of what I might see. And then I did see something, an eye, just a single, dark eye staring back at me through the narrow space. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat locked up, my muscles refused to move. Then, as quietly as it had come, the shadow stepped back. The feet vanished. The hallway went silent again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just sat there, lights on, phone in hand, until the morning sun broke through the blinds. When daylight came, I finally opened the door. The hallway was empty, quiet. But the wooden floor outside my room looked different. The dust had been disturbed, in the shape of footprints, and each step was darker, almost burnt-looking, as if something had seared into the wood. They led down the hallway and stopped at the attic ladder. Now here's the thing. I hadn't opened that attic since I moved in. There was nothing up there but insulation and dust. At least, that's what I told myself as I climbed the ladder with my flashlight trembling in my hand. When I pushed the hatch open, the air that came down was cold, much colder than the rest of the house. I pulled myself up, the wood creaking under my weight. My flashlight beam swept across the darkness. Beams, old boxes, cobwebs, and then something else. A shoe print, large, bare, and next to it, a small pile of ashes. I crouched down to look closer, my breath fogging in the freezing air. The ashes weren't from wood or dust. They looked recent, like something had burned, or someone. Then, from behind me, I heard a low whisper. "You shouldn't have looked." I spun around, the flashlight shaking in my hand, but no one was there. The sound came from the corner of the attic near a broken mirror leaning against the wall. When I pointed the light toward it, my reflection stared back. But I wasn't alone in it. Behind me, in the reflection, not in real life, stood a tall, thin man with his head tilted to one side, smiling. And then the reflection waved. The light flickered. The air went cold, and I heard the footsteps again. This time in the attic with me. I bolted down the ladder, slamming the hatch shut behind me, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Something heavy hit the other side of the door once, twice, then silence. I backed away, shaking. Then, tap, 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 the same 3 knocks I'd heard that first night. Only this time they came from the inside of the attic door. I didn't touch that attic door for 2 whole days. Every time I walked past it, I could feel the cold air leaking through the cracks. like the space above the ceiling was breathing. But curiosity has its own gravity. By the third night, it pulled me back. I told myself I'd just check. Make sure nothing had fallen, no animal had gotten trapped up there. Rational things, comforting lies. I grabbed my flashlight, pressed record on my phone, and pointed the camera at the attic hatch. "Just in case," I whispered to the empty hallway. The metal latch was still warped from when I'd slammed it shut. When I touched it, the wood felt warm, almost pulsing beneath my palm. That made no sense. The rest of the house was cold. I pushed the ladder down. Each step groaned under my weight. When my head cleared the edge of the opening, the smell hit me. Old dust, rust, and something else. Something sweet. Like burnt sugar and decay mixed together. The beam of my flashlight sliced through the dark. Nothing moved. No sound except the faint hum of air through the insulation. I started recording, whispering my notes like a ghost hunter from some cheap reality show. "Attic appears empty," I said. "Temperature feels..." A click cut through the silence. It came from my phone. The screen flickered, glitched, then went black. Then behind me, the attic door closed itself. I spun around so fast I nearly fell from the ladder. The hatch was shut tight. I was sealed inside. "Okay, calm down," I muttered. "Wind draft, gravity, nothing weird." But the air around me thickened, like someone had filled the attic with invisible water. And then I heard it again. Thump, thump, thump. The footsteps were up there with me now, slow, heavy, circling. The sound came from behind the support beams. I swung the flashlight that way. Nothing. The steps moved again, this time to my left, then to my right, like something pacing around me in a circle I couldn't see. My breath fogged in front of my face. The light trembled. And then, out of nowhere, a whisper drifted across the attic. "It's almost open." I froze. The voice wasn't near me. It was beneath me. I aimed the light at the floorboards. Between two of the planks, something glowed faintly. A thin red line pulsing like a heartbeat. I crouched, trying to look closer. The wood was warm, almost hot, and under it I could hear a faint sound, like static from a radio. "He's listening," the whisper said again. That's when I realized the static wasn't static at all. It was breathing. I backed toward the hatch, fumbling for the latch, pulling, yanking. It wouldn't budge. The wood groaned and the temperature dropped so fast my hands went numb. The whisper turned into a low growl, layered, more than one voice, overlapping like 100 people speaking through one throat. "You opened it. You called us." A cold pressure pressed against my back like someone standing inches behind me. I didn't dare turn around. "Look," it hissed. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then went out completely. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but darkness. And then, two pale shapes glowed faintly in front of me. Feet, bare, burned feet standing on the wood. I screamed and slammed my shoulder against the hatch until it finally burst open. I fell down the ladder, hit the hallway floor hard, and scrambled backward. The attic door hung open above me, creaking gently. The smell of smoke drifted down. When I looked up again, something peered over the edge of the opening. Not a face, exactly, but the impression of one, shifting and crackling like heat haze. "Downstairs," it whispered. "Next step." Then the hatch slammed shut so hard the ceiling shook. I ran straight for the front door. It was locked, deadbolt, chain, everything. But when I looked at the keyhole, the metal was melted, like someone had pressed a red-hot brand into it. That's when my phone buzzed. The screen, which had been black a minute ago, lit up on its own. Recording saved. Attic door, row 3.movie. Opened it with trembling hands. The footage showed the attic exactly as I remembered. Until the last 10 seconds, the camera angle shifted even though I hadn't moved it. It pointed toward the far corner, and in the darkness, a tall, thin shape stepped forward. Its eyes glowed white, mouth opening like a scream with no sound. Then, in the final frame, It looked directly into the lens and whispered, "See you downstairs." The clip ended. That was last night. Now it's just past midnight again. I'm writing this down because I can hear the attic door creaking open above me, and the footsteps are coming down the stairs. It's strange how quickly fear can become part of your routine. The first night it happened, I thought I'd go insane. By the fourth night, I'd accepted it. The knocks, the cold, the whispering in the walls, like some grim, unwanted roommate I couldn't evict. But this time was different, because now it wanted to be seen. I didn't sleep after hearing those footsteps coming down the stairs. Instead, I sat in the living room with the lights on, gripping my phone, staring at that attic door at the top of the stairs. It stayed shut, silent, still. Around 3 a.m., I opened the recording again. Attic door 003, move. I must have watched it 50 times by then, searching for details. Each time I noticed something new. At first it was the shape. Tall, distorted, like a man who'd forgotten how to be human. Then I saw the details. Burned skin, flickering edges, like static leaking through flesh. But on the 50th playback, I heard something I hadn't before. A voice. Not the whisper at the end. A voice beneath it, hidden in the static. I put on my headphones, cranked the volume, and replayed the clip again. Beneath the distortion, I could just barely make it out. Play it backwards. I froze. Part of me wanted to stop right there. Delete the file. Smash the phone, burn everything, and leave. But another part of me needed to know. So I downloaded a free audio app, reversed the clip, and hit play. For the first 10 seconds, it was just noise. Then came the voice again. Only this time it said something different. He's not upstairs anymore. The lights flickered. A low creak echoed through the house. Slowly, I turned toward the hallway, the same one that led to my bedroom, to the attic stairs, to everything that had gone wrong. The floorboards whispered as the temperature dropped. I could feel something watching from around the corner. My phone buzzed in my hand. Another file appeared on the screen. New recording, hallway 04, movie. Hadn't pressed record. I hadn't even opened the camera. The thumbnail showed the hallway, empty, still, glowing faintly in the dark, except for one detail. In the far background, halfway down the hall, something was standing. It was facing the camera, its head tilted slightly to the side, and even though the image was just a frozen thumbnail, I could feel it staring back. My body went cold. I hit play. At first, the camera didn't move. Just a still shot of the hall, like a security feed. Then the sound of breathing, not mine. Deep, raspy, uneven. The figure in the distance shifted slightly, one foot dragging forward. Then another. The camera shook, static bursting across the frame. Thump, thump, thump. Those same footsteps getting louder, closer. The figure reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped. The phone's microphone caught every tiny sound. The groan of the wood, the faint hum in the walls, the uneven breathing. Then, slowly the camera tilted down, as if something unseen was holding it now, and panned toward the living room, my living room. The video ended. I stood up and turned toward the hallway in real life, empty, quiet, but I knew it was there, backed into the corner of the room, clutching the phone, trying to think. If it could record on its own, if it could control the camera, that meant it didn't need the attic anymore. It was inside the house. Inside the signal. I opened the app again, scrolling through my videos. There were dozens of recordings now, all with the same format. Attic door, hallway, stairs, living room, files I never made. I clicked on the most recent one. Living room, thorough, on, move. The thumbnail made my stomach drop. It was me, sitting right where I was now, looking at my phone, I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and fell, screen cracked but still glowing faintly. The video began playing on its own. In it, I was sitting motionless. Behind me, in the footage, the hallway was visible, and something was walking out of it. A tall, blackened figure, head tilted, arms twitching unnaturally. In the video, I didn't react. I just sat there. Then the thing leaned forward, placing one burnt hand on my shoulder, in the recording. And at that exact moment, I felt something touch my real shoulder. I screamed, spinning around, nothing there. The living room was empty, but my shoulder burned, skin tingling as if something hot had brushed it. I looked down. A black handprint, scorched into my shirt. That's when my TV turned on. Static filled the screen, loud enough to rattle the windows. The white noise swirled, forming shapes, faces, eyes, mouths, all flickering in and out. Then, the hum began. That same low humming from before, but now layered with hundreds of voices whispering all at once. Record, replay, remember, the screen flashed. For a split second, I saw my living room on the TV, but the version on screen looked wrong. Darker, twisted, walls warped and pulsing like they were alive, and sitting in the chair was me, staring at the screen, bleeding from the eyes. Then everything went black. I must have passed out because when I came to, it was morning. The TV was off. My phone was gone. The only thing left was a note on the table, a single sheet of paper, blank except for one line written in soot. The next recording starts tonight. Morning light doesn't mean safety anymore. The shadows just hide better. They wait for nightfall, for silence, for that 1 second when your heart beats too loud. That's when you hear them again, those heavy, careful footsteps on the floor above you. It's been 2 days since the note appeared. 2 days of pretending this house is still mine. But I know now, it belongs to them. On the second night, my phone returned. I found it sitting on the kitchen counter at 12:01 a.m., screen glowing faint blue. The cracks on the glass had been fixed, the battery full. Only one file sat on it now. Final playback, WoWa 1, movie didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I carried it to the living room, set up the camera on a tripod, turned on every light, and started recording a new file of my own. If this was going to end, I wanted proof, something real to leave behind. I hit record and looked straight into the lens. My name is... The mic hissed. My name was swallowed by static. I tried again, louder. My name is... Same thing. Static. Like it didn't want my name remembered. I took a breath. Something's been in this house, I said. It moves through the walls. It watches through recordings. Every night it gets closer. As I spoke, I heard faint creaks above me. The attic, of course. I pointed the camera upward. It's still up there, I said, voice shaking. And it's waiting. Then the phone in my pocket buzzed. Notification final, playback, want, move. Now playing, I hadn't touched it. The screen came alive on its own. The video showed me exactly as I look now, sitting on the same couch, speaking the same words, only in the playback. I wasn't alone. Behind me stood the man from the attic. That burned silhouette, his head bowed as if listening. Each time I blinked, he moved a little closer. On the fifth blink, he was standing right beside my shoulder. Stop watching, he whispered in the recording. But I couldn't. I watched as my recorded self turned, slowly, realizing too late what was behind him. The screen erupted in static. Then the real room went dark. Every bulb in the house blew at once. Glass popped. Darkness swallowed everything. I groped for the flashlight, heart slamming against my ribs. When I clicked it on, the beam caught movement at the end of the hallway. A shape peeling itself out of the shadows like wet paper. Tall, crooked, smoke rising from its skin. You played it, it said. Now it's your turn. The hallway warped, stretching longer with every step it took. The walls pulsed, breathing in rhythm with mine. I ran, Doors slammed on their own as I passed them. The kitchen, the bathroom, the stairs, each one sealing itself shut. The only path left was forward toward the front door. I grabbed the handle and pulled. It opened. But beyond it wasn't the outside world. It was the hallway again. Same carpet, same walls, same flickering light. I had run in a circle, and at the far end stood the figure, waiting. I stumbled backward, shouting, "What do you want?" The answer came from everywhere at once, layered voices crawling along the wallpaper. To be remembered. The lights flickered, and now there were dozens of them, silhouettes lining the hall, half-burned faces, mouths moving in sync. Every one of them was whispering the same word. Record, record, record. Then all at once, silence. Only my breathing. I looked down. My phone's camera was on again, pointed straight at me. The recording timer was running. Chiar, Io Joe 1, Io Dron Chao Durai hadn't started it. The air grew dense. Static filled my ears, the same endless hiss that had followed me since that first night. And beneath it faintly, another voice spoke, clearer now, closer. Play it back. Against every instinct I did, the phone screen showed me standing exactly where I was. Then the image began to split like two versions of the same scene overlapping. In one I was frozen. In the other, I moved, slowly turning toward the camera, but the second version of me didn't stop turning. It twisted its head all the way around, bones cracking like dry branches until its eyes met the lens. "He's recording us now," it said. The phone fell from my hands. It hit the floor, still filming. On the screen, I saw the shadows rushing forward. I grabbed the camera from the tripod and bolted into the hallway, the beam of its tiny light cutting through the dark. Every door I passed now opened on its own, but none of them led anywhere real. Just endless loops of the same hallway, the same footprints burned into the floor. The whispers followed, layered like an echo chamber that never stopped. "Keep filming. Don't look away. We need you to watch." At the end of the last hallway stood the attic ladder, extended and waiting. A faint red glow leaked from the hatch above. I knew what I had to do. If this thing wanted me to finish the broadcast, to complete whatever signal it had started, I had to destroy the source. I climbed. The closer I got, the louder the static grew until it wasn't sound anymore. It was pressure, pushing against my skull. When I pulled myself into the attic, I stopped breathing. The space was filled with screens, hundreds of them, old TVs stacked like bricks, each showing a different angle of my house. Every screen showed me, moving through the rooms, trapped in infinite loops. And in the center of it all stood the tall figure, head tilted, hands crackling with static. "It's not the house," it said. "It's the recording." I raised the camera, shaking. "Then I'll stop filming." The figure laughed, a broken hollow sound that scraped against my ears. "You already did." It pointed behind me. I turned. Another me stood there, identical, holding a camera, recording this moment. His mouth moved in sync with mine, but his eyes were hollow white, bleeding static. "Every recording needs a subject," he said. "You're mine." The TVs began to explode one by one, bursts of light and noise flooding the attic. The static roared, drowning out everything. I dropped to my knees, clutching the camera, screaming for it to stop, and then silence. Just a faint crackle like a dying signal. I opened my eyes. The attic was empty. No screens, no figure, just darkness. I stumbled down the ladder, coughing on the smoke. When I reached the living room, my phone lay on the floor again, screen glowing softly. A new file sat on it. Final playback. 02. Movie pressed play. The video showed the attic perfectly still. Then the camera tilted downward, revealing me lying there, unmoving. The frame lingered for a moment before fading to black. Then, A voice, my own, whispered from the speaker, "You're next." The phone shut itself off, and somewhere upstairs, the footsteps began again. Thump, thump, thump. I never believed in ghosts. Not until the night I read the file marked Patient 217. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I'm sitting alone in the security office of Blackridge Psychiatric Hospital, listening to the building breathe. Yeah, breathe. Because somehow, even though the place has been shut down since 1998, it feels alive. I wasn't supposed to be here long. The county hired me for 2 weeks, temporary night security while they cleared out old medical records. Just easy pay. Walk the halls, check the locks, make sure no vandals sneak in. But from the very first night, things didn't feel right. For one, the air was too cold, like the AC was still running, even though there hasn't been power here for years. And every few hours, I'd hear what sounded like tapping under the floor. Steady, rhythmic, like knuckles on wood. At first, I figured it was rats, but then the pattern changed. It started matching my own footsteps. The hospital itself is massive. 4 floors of patient rooms, treatment wards, and long, endless corridors that all look the same. There's even a sealed basement level called Ward E, where they supposedly kept non-compliant patients. No one's been down there in decades. On my 3rd night, while I was reviewing old paper records, I found a manila envelope inside a locked drawer. The tag on it read, "Transfer file, Patient 217, do not open." Naturally, I opened it. Inside were a few faded photographs, a psych evaluation, and an audio tape. The doctor's notes said, "Subject continues to claim voices are coming from beneath the floor. Request to move downstairs persist. No lower level confirmed. Evaluation suspended pending observation." Beneath that, a line was scribbled in red ink. "Patient 217 is not hearing voices. He is answering them." That night, I made the mistake of playing the tape. The label read, "Interview log number 5, 02/11/1996I, pressed play." A man's voice crackled through static. "They're calling again. Doctor, they said it's almost open." Then a woman's voice, calm, professional. Probably the doctor. "What's almost open, Daniel?" The door. Beneath us. The one they buried. The tape clicked. Silence. Then a faint whisper, so soft I almost missed it. "You shouldn't be here." That wasn't part of the interview. It came from the playback itself. Right beside me, I hit stop. The air in the room shifted, like the whole building exhaled. The overhead light flickered once, twice, then stayed dim, and that's when I noticed something new on the floor, a fresh crack running from the door to my chair. No dust around it, no signs of age, like the concrete had split right then, and from deep below that crack came the faint sound of whispering. Hundreds of voices layered together. I froze, listening. I could almost make out words. "Help us." "Open." "Listen." Then tap, tap, tap. Something hit the floor from underneath. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, like a question. The power flickered again. When the lights came back, my desk was empty. The file, the tape, everything, gone. I stood panicked and shone my flashlight around the office. Nothing. But when I turned back to the door, the envelope was there again, taped to the glass on the inside. Only this time the label had changed. Transfer file, security officer, 142, do not open, and underneath, written in what looked like rust or blood, was a new line. "We hear you now." That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've tried not to think about it. But the whispering hasn't stopped. It follows me through the halls, beneath the floors, behind the walls. And tonight, when I started my shift, the basement door, the one that's been welded shut for 20 years, was open. They said Ward E was sealed for good. They lied. When I found the basement door open that night, The first thing I noticed was the smell. Damp concrete and old antiseptic, like someone had just cleaned up something that shouldn't have been there. The second thing I noticed was the sound. It wasn't whispering this time. It was breathing, slow, steady, coming from somewhere below the stairs. My flashlight cut through a narrow staircase of cracked cement. Every few steps I saw streaks of rust on the wall that almost looked like handprints. Halfway down, I passed a faded sign, Ward E, authorized staff only. Someone had crossed out staff and written in black marker listeners. The air grew heavier with every step. No wind, no sound, except the low hum of something electrical that shouldn't have been running. When I reached the bottom, my light caught the outline of a long hallway lined with reinforced doors. Each one had a small glass window. Every window was black, except one. Room 17, a single bulb flickered inside, casting pale light across the floor. I moved closer, careful not to make noise. Inside the room was a single chair and a tape recorder sitting on the floor. Still spinning. I leaned down and pressed stop. Then rewind, then play. The tape hissed, then a voice spoke. Not patient 217 this time. It was me. Ward E, basement level 2:43 a.m. The door was open when I arrived. I froze. That was my voice, describing right now. The tape is still recording. I think there's someone else here. Before I could stop it, another voice overlapped mine on the tape. Behind you. I spun around. Nothing, but the hallway light at the far end flickered off, and then on again. In that split second of darkness, I thought I saw movement. A figure standing in front of one of the cell doors, head bent at an impossible angle. When the light returned, the door it had stood by was open. I should have left, but I didn't, because from inside that room came a sound I recognized. The same tap. Tap, tap from beneath the floors upstairs. I aimed my light through the doorway. The room was empty except for a drain in the center of the floor, and from that drain, faint whispers rose, like air escaping from somewhere deeper. I knelt down. The whispers sharpened into words. He's here. The new listener. Open the way. Then something moved under the grate, not small. Not a rat. Something large, shifting just beneath the surface. I stumbled back, flashlight shaking. The drain rattled once, twice, then went still. I turned to leave, but the door to the hallway had closed on its own. Metal slamming against metal. I yanked at it, but it wouldn't budge. Then the overhead bulb popped, throwing the room into darkness. The only light came from the crack beneath the drain, a faint red glow, and a voice rose from below, clearer now, speaking directly to me. You found my file. My breath caught. It was patient 217. You opened it. So now you have to finish it. The floor vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. The drain cover slid an inch to the side as something pushed up from underneath. They buried us down here, the voice said. But we learned how to speak through the walls. Through you. I stumbled back, slamming into the far wall. The flashlight flickered, and for a heartbeat I saw them. Dozens of figures pressed into the concrete, like their bodies had been swallowed by the walls. Eyes open, mouths moving, whispering. Help us open. The light went out again. When it came back, I was standing in the hallway. The room behind me was sealed, door welded shut, as if it had never opened. And on the ground by my feet lay a new envelope. Transfer file. Patient 218 below that. Scrawled in shaky handwriting. Next listener confirmed. When I got back to the security office that night, I didn't even bother turning on the lights. The entire building was whispering. Every vent, every pipe, every stretch of floor carried faint, layered voices. If I focused on them, I could almost make out words. But they never spoke loud enough to be clear, like they didn't want to be understood, only heard. And somehow, that was worse. I tried calling my supervisor. No signal. Tried the landline. Dead. Even the emergency radio was filled with static. I was alone. Or maybe I wasn't. Because when I checked the CCTV monitors, one of the basement cameras was still on. The feed showed room 17, the same one where I'd heard the drain whispering. Only now the floor wasn't empty. A shape was standing in the corner. Tall, thin, its head tilted toward the ceiling like it was listening. I leaned closer to the screen. That's when the shape moved. It stepped toward the camera, slow and deliberate. The image fuzzed, glitched, then cleared again, and suddenly, it wasn't room 17 on the screen anymore. It was me, sitting right here in the security office. Same desk, same monitor, only in the feed I wasn't moving. I was just staring at the screen, motionless, and behind me, on the monitor, that thing was standing, its burned hand resting on my shoulder. The real office went ice cold. I spun around and nothing, but the whispering changed. Now it was coming from inside the walls. Low, rhythmic, like breathing. "You can't leave, listener." The voice was right behind my ear. I turned again. Still nothing. But the reflection in the dark monitor glass didn't match what was behind me. In the reflection, I could see movement, faint shapes sliding across the room, like shadows without bodies. That's when I realized the whispering wasn't random. It had a pattern. Every time it repeated a phrase, a light somewhere in the hospital would flicker. Once for open, twice for listen, 3 times for record. It wasn't just sound, it was communication. I grabbed the envelope labeled Patient 218 and ripped it open. Inside was a single photograph, a close-up of an old microphone embedded in the wall of a padded cell. Underneath, a note. "They're not dead. They're transmitted." Something clicked in my head then. Patient 217 hadn't been hearing ghosts. He'd been hearing echoes. Fragments of the people who died down here. Their voices somehow trapped in the hospital's wiring, floors, and walls. And now, I was hearing them too. That's what listener meant. Not a title, a condition. I'd been tuned to them. Suddenly, all the monitors in front of me switched on at once. Each one showed a different hallway, different rooms, all empty. Then, one by one, faint outlines began to appear. Figures, dozens of them, moving through the halls like shadows projected on fog. Their mouths opened in silent screams, and then they all turned, together, and looked straight into the cameras, straight at me. "Finish the transmission," the whisper said. "Complete the broadcast." The floor vibrated under my feet. Something massive moved beneath it, shifting, pushing upward. A loud metallic creak echoed through the building. I looked at the door camera, the one facing the old elevator shaft, and froze. The elevator, which hadn't worked in years, was moving, slowly descending. The lights on its panel flickered through numbers. 4, 3, 2, 1, B. Then it stopped, and in the camera feed, the doors slid open, darkness inside, and 2 glowing eyes staring out. The whispering surged, voices overlapping, desperate, almost hungry. "Come down. It's time. He's awake." I backed away from the monitors. The building shook again, dust falling from the ceiling like ash. When I turned toward the door, there was a fresh envelope taped to it. Transfer file, Patient 219 this time. The handwriting was mine, and underneath it, 3 new words I didn't remember writing. "Ward E is listening." There's no silence in this hospital anymore. Even when the whispers fade, you can still feel them, humming through the walls, vibrating in your bones. By the 4th night, I stopped pretending I could sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the same words repeating inside my head. "Go below. Finish the broadcast." So I did. The elevator stood waiting, doors half open like a mouth mid-scream. Dust floated through the air like slow snow. The buttons on the panel didn't light up, but when I stepped inside, the doors shut on their own. The car shook once, then started to move. Down. No sound of machinery, no cables whirring. Just that low, steady hum, the same one from the walls. The floor indicator went past B, then to B2, then B3. That level wasn't on any blueprint. When the doors opened, I expected darkness. Instead, a faint amber glow spilled into the elevator. Old emergency lights humming like dying bees. The hallway ahead wasn't like the others. No patient rooms, no doors at all. Just long, narrow concrete leading toward a metal gate. On it, someone had painted words in large black strokes. Transmission room, authorized listeners only. The paint had run down the wall, like it was written in liquid that never dried. I pushed the gate open. The room beyond was massive, circular, with rusted consoles and cables snaking across the floor. In the center stood an old radio tower, short and cracked, its antennae bending toward the ceiling. At its base were chairs. 6 of them arranged in a circle around a cluster of microphones. 5 were empty. The 6th wasn't. Someone was sitting there, head down, motionless. I raised my flashlight. He was wearing a hospital gown. Tag on his wrist read, Patient 217, Daniel Gray. For a long second, I thought he was dead. But when my light hit his face, his eyes opened, wide, milky white. He didn't move his mouth when he spoke. The sound came from the walls. You shouldn't have listened, I stumbled back. Daniel, you were transferred. The files said, they don't transfer us. They tune us. The tower behind him sparked. A low electric crackle, faint at first, then louder. Every light in the room pulsed in rhythm with his words. They built this place on old lines. Wires that carried more than power. Voices, thoughts, memory. His head tilted toward me. You opened the files. You finished what they started. I tried to back toward the elevator, but the door was gone. In its place was solid wall, smooth and cold. Let me out, I shouted. I'm not part of this. The whispers surged, filling the room. Hundreds of overlapping voices, all speaking through the same static. Everyone who listens becomes part of the signal. Everyone who hears transmits. The tower began to glow, faint red veins of light running up its frame like blood vessels. The microphones turned toward me on their own, motors whining softly. Sit, Daniel said. We've been waiting for the last seat. My knees gave out. Not from fear and from pressure. Like invisible hands were pushing me down. I landed in the final chair, trembling. The static roared louder, and for a moment I saw faces in the light. All the missing patients, their features distorted like melting wax, whispering in unison. Record. Then, one by one, the microphones around the circle powered on, their red lights blinking. The old tower's speakers crackled to life. Testing. Testing. The voice wasn't Daniel's anymore. It was mine. I looked up. Daniel was gone. Only the empty gown remained, draped over the chair and the tower. It was still speaking in my voice. Security Officer 142, commencing final broadcast. I covered my ears, but the words weren't coming from outside anymore. They were inside my head. Every syllable burned like static through my skull. We transmit to remember. We whisper to remain. Now you will too. The tower's lights flared. The air shimmered. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting alone in the security office. The clock read 3:17 a.m. Everything looked normal. For a moment, I thought it was all a dream. Then the radio on the desk came alive. Soft static hissing through the speaker, and through it, faintly, my own voice whispered, "Can you hear us?" There's a sound you can't unhear once you've truly listened. It's not a whisper, not even a voice. It's the hum beneath everything, the quiet current that lives between silence and sound. That's what I hear now. All the time. When I left the hospital that night, the air outside felt wrong. Too still, too clean, like the whole world had been wiped down, scrubbed of noise. For the first time in days, there were no whispers. But that didn't comfort me, because I knew they weren't gone. They were waiting. I drove until the morning sun came up, but the static followed. Every radio station on my car dial hissed with faint distortion. Every few seconds, a word would slip through the noise. Listen, open, remember. I tried turning the radio off. Didn't matter. The words still bled through the silence. I threw the whole unit out the window somewhere outside town. Didn't matter either. The static wasn't in the speakers anymore. It was inside me. 2 nights later, the county called. They wanted to check in about my last shift. Apparently, the new security officer, my replacement, hadn't shown up for work. I asked if anyone else had been assigned to Black Ridge before me. The line went quiet. Then a voice, flat, official, said, "You were the first officer to take that post since 1996. That was the year patient 217's file ended." I hung up. Didn't sleep that night because in the quiet I heard tapping, soft, 3 beats. Under the floorboards, exactly the same rhythm as before. By the 4th day, I couldn't take the silence. I went back to Black Ridge. The building looked different in daylight, less threatening, almost empty. But the moment I stepped inside, the air changed again, colder, thicker, alive. The security office was still there. Same chair, same monitor, same envelope waiting on the desk. I didn't touch it. I already knew what it would say, but I sat down anyway, because deep down, I knew this wasn't over. The monitors flickered to life one by one. Hallways, basement, Ward E, the transmission room, and on every screen, a faint glow pulsed in rhythm, like a heartbeat. Then, in the center monitor, I saw myself. Not now then, the moment I sat in the final chair. Only this time the figure across from me wasn't Daniel. It was another version of me, half transparent, flickering in and out of the picture. He looked straight into the camera. "You didn't finish it," he said. The static swelled. "You brought the signal out." The room began to shake. Papers lifted from the desk. The light bulb above me dimmed until it glowed red. On the monitors, the hospital's walls began to split. Beneath them, wires. Miles of coiled metal, twisting like veins. And through those wires, faces. The patients. Hundreds of them, whispering in perfect unison. "We remember. We remain." Then my reflection in the monitor smiled. Not me, the other me. The one who'd stayed behind in the transmission room. Every listener becomes a frequency. Every frequency needs to spread. He raised his hand. On the desk beside me, the radio, the same one I'd smashed, crackled to life again. At first it was just static. Then faintly, my voice began to speak through it. Calm, measured, almost rehearsed. "This is Security Officer 142 if you're hearing this. It's already too late." The static deepened into a low hum. The light bulb burst, and the screens went black. Only the radio stayed alive, the dial glowing faint green. They buried their voices in the wires. We set them free. The broadcast doesn't end. The volume climbed, filling the room with white noise. It grew louder, sharper, until it was no longer sound. It was vibration. It shook through my teeth, my ribs, my skull. I tried to unplug the radio. No cord, no power source. Still, it played. Then I heard the last thing I'll ever remember clearly. "You're the next transmitter." Everything went silent. When I opened my eyes, the hospital was empty again. Morning light streamed through the cracked windows. The monitors were dead. The radio was gone. Only one thing remained on the desk. A fresh manila envelope. Transfer file. Patient 220. The handwriting was mine. And at the bottom of the page, a single line burned into the paper. "Begin transmission." That's when I understood. The whispers weren't haunting me. They were using me. Every word I'd recorded, every sound I'd heard, all of it was part of the signal. And now, through me, they could reach anyone. anyone listening, anyone watching, anyone hearing these words. So if you're hearing this right now, if you're listening, you've already joined the signal too. Just remember what they told me. Once you listen, you transmit, and somewhere beneath the floor, the voices whisper back, "Welcome to Ward E." You ever notice how the world feels different after midnight? Like the sky gets heavier. Like the darkness isn't just an absence of light. It's something alive, watching. That's what I felt the night I drove into the desert. I'd been on the road for hours. Just me, my old pickup, and a highway that looked like it hadn't seen another car since the 80s. The radio was broken. The GPS kept losing signal, and my phone had been at 1% for the last 30 miles. But I wasn't worried. I'd made this drive a dozen times before, cutting across the state to deliver spare parts for my boss's repair shop. Always late, always alone, always fine. Until that night. Around 1:30 a.m., I saw the first sign. Last gas for 50 miles, Red Valley Station. The arrow pointed left. Only problem was, there wasn't supposed to be any Red Valley Station. Not anymore. I'd driven this route for years, and the old-timers always talked about it like a ghost story. They said the place had burned down back in 1977. Electrical fire, total loss, 3 people missing. No one rebuilt. No one even went near it. But the sign looked brand new. Reflective paint, unbent metal, even the screws gleamed under my headlights. I should have kept driving. But my fuel gauge was low, and the needle was starting to flirt with empty. So I turned left. The side road was rough. Cracked asphalt, overgrown weeds pushing through the surface. My headlights caught glimpses of old fences and half-buried mailboxes, all worn and forgotten. I remember thinking the desert felt too quiet. No wind, no insects, not even the hum of power lines. Then I saw it, a faint orange glow on the horizon, the shape of a gas station rising from the dark like a mirage. The place looked wrong. Not run down exactly, just out of time. The sign out front flickered with old neon letters. Red Valley Service, open all night. A bell hung over the station door, swaying slightly, though there was no wind. The pumps looked ancient, painted a dull green, the kind with numbers that flip instead of digital screens. And behind the counter, I could see the faint outline of a man. I parked near pump 2. The ground crunched under my boots as I walked toward the door. The bell above me rang, sharp and clear, echoing through the stillness. The man behind the counter didn't move. He was tall, wearing an old gray uniform, and his name tag said Harris. His skin was pale, like it hadn't seen sunlight in decades. "Evening," I said, trying to sound casual. Didn't think anyone was still open this late. He smiled, but it wasn't a natural smile. His lips moved, but his eyes didn't. "Always open," he said. "Always serving." His voice was dry, like a radio tune between stations. I tried not to show how uneasy I was. "I just need a few gallons to get back to the main road." "Pump's on," he said. "Pay after." As I walked back outside, I realized something strange. The night sky above the station looked darker than before, like the stars had gone out. The air smelled faintly of burned oil and something sweet, like rotting fruit. I filled my tank, but the numbers on the pump didn't move. No click, no flow sound, no fuel smell. When I looked closer, the hose wasn't connected to anything. It ended in a torn piece of rubber, hanging loose. I turned back toward the building. The man behind the counter was gone. The bell above the door jingled on its own. I froze. Then a voice came from inside. Not loud, soft, echoing from somewhere deep behind the store. "You shouldn't stop here." It wasn't the same voice as before. This one sounded like a woman, distant, trembling, afraid. I stepped inside. The lights flickered, humming faintly. Shelves lined with dusty snacks and old soda bottles stretched toward the back, and beyond them, a narrow hallway. "Hello?" I called. No answer. Then I noticed something on the counter. An old photo. It showed the same gas station, only brighter, cleaner, newer. 4 people stood in front of it. The man from the counter, a woman, and 2 kids. Their faces were blurred, like the film had melted, and on the back, written in faded red ink, "Always open, always here." The lights flickered again. When they came back, the shelves were empty. Every label gone, every product stripped away. Only the photo remained. Then the air changed, heavy, charged, and from the hallway I heard the bell ring again. Only this time, it wasn't from the door. It was deeper, metallic, echoing through the floor. I took one step toward the sound, and the floorboards groaned beneath me. Another step and something knocked back. 3 slow taps. Then silence. I don't know why I did it, but I knelt down and pressed my ear to the floor. And that's when I heard the whisper. "Don't listen to the man!" I pulled back, heart hammering. The whisper came again, clearer this time. "He keeps them here. He keeps us here." My flashlight flickered. When it steadied, the photo on the counter was gone. The back door creaked open on its own. Cold wind rushed through the store, carrying the faint smell of smoke. Through the doorway, I saw faint orange light, firelight, dancing against the far wall. I hesitated, then stepped closer. The hallway led to a small room, probably once an office. A single chair sat in the center, facing a wall covered in scorch marks. And on the wall, written in black ash, "They never left." The ground beneath me vibrated, low and rhythmic, like the sound of an old engine trying to start. I turned to leave, but the door back to the store was gone. Only a blank wall remained. The air buzzed with static. The whispering grew louder. "Once you stop here, you stay." Then, for a split second, I saw faces in the firelight. The man from the photo, the woman, the kids, all standing behind me, eyes glowing faint amber. The static surged. The room went black, and the last thing I remember was that bell, ringing over and over, until it sounded less like a bell, and more like laughter. When I woke up, the air was heavy with smoke. Not thick enough to choke on, but just enough to sting my eyes and make the back of my throat burn. I was lying on the cold tile floor, my head pressed against something wet. When I sat up, my flashlight was still in my hand, its beam weak and flickering. The office I'd been trapped in looked different. The burned wall was clean now, the words "they never left" gone. The chair in the center was upright again, as if someone had carefully set it back in place. And the door that had disappeared, it was back. Slightly open, a sliver of light spilling through the crack. For a second, I thought I'd dreamed it all. But when I looked down, I saw black soot on my hands, ash under my fingernails, and in the corner of the room, the faint outline of a footprint burned into the tile. I pushed the door open slowly. The store beyond was empty. No shelves, no counter, no light. Just that faint orange glow again, humming from the sign outside. I stepped out, careful not to make a sound. The place was too quiet, not empty, just waiting. I could feel it. Outside, the neon sign flickered against the window. Red Valley Service, open all night. The words pulsed, steady as a heartbeat. Then, for a split second, the lights shifted. Red Valley Service, open all night became Red Valley, never closed. I blinked, and it was back to normal. The parking lot was empty. My truck was gone. The pumps stood silent, the wind whining through their metal frames. I walked around the side of the building, hoping maybe I'd parked somewhere else. Maybe the desert heat had finally messed with my memory. But there was nothing. No tire marks, no footprints, no sign of anyone ever being here. Just endless flat land stretching in every direction. And the road I came from, gone. In its place was a wall of black sand, rising like a frozen wave. I went back inside. The bell over the door rang once, slow, hollow, and final. Inside, the lights dimmed until the only glow came from the refrigerator units at the back, except there wasn't any food in them. Only jars, hundreds of them, each one filled with something dark, thick, like old oil. And in each jar, a shape floated just beneath the surface. Hands, eyes, teeth. I stepped back, my heartbeat loud in my ears. That's when I saw him again, the man, Harris, standing behind the counter. Same uniform, same too-wide smile. "Didn't finish filling your tank," he said. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. "You came back," he said. "That's good. You always do. What is this place?" I finally managed. "Where's the road?" "Where's my truck?" "You drove too far," he said simply. "You crossed over." "Crossed over where?" "Between the lines." He lifted one of the jars and set it on the counter. The black liquid inside rippled like it was breathing. "Every traveler leaves something behind," he said. "A piece, a sound, a memory." He tilted the jar toward the light. Inside I saw something small, a metal keychain. Mine. "You're leaking," he said, almost kindly. "Happens to everyone." I backed away, stumbling toward the door, but the glass was now solid, a wall instead of a window. Behind me, the humming grew louder. The neon outside pulsed faster, flashing in bursts. The shelves began to shake, the jars rattling in unison. "They're waking up," Harris said softly. Then the lights went out. For a few seconds, there was only darkness and the sound of rattling glass. Then one of the refrigerator lights flicked back on, dim and cold, and inside, pressed against the foggy glass, was a face. Eyes open, mouth moving, like it was screaming underwater. I stumbled back. The door behind me suddenly gave way, and I fell through it, out into the desert, except it wasn't the desert anymore. The gas station was gone. In its place stood an old diner, chrome walls, red letters faded from decades of sun. A sign above it read, "Valley Stop Cafe, always fresh, always open." My mind spun. The same phrase again, "always open." I pushed open the diner door. The bell rang, and there, sitting at the counter, was the same man, Harris. Same clothes, same voice. "You can't leave yet," he said, smiling. "The road's not done with you." I looked outside. The pumps were back. The sign flickered red again, and beneath my feet, the floor vibrated with that same low hum. The world was looping, folding back on itself. Different shape, same curse. "Why me?" I asked. "Why this?" He leaned closer, whispering in a tone that didn't sound human. "Because you stopped." The bell rang again. The door opened, and a second man walked in. Same tired face, same jacket, same dirt street boots. It was me. He didn't look at me, just walked straight to the counter like he'd done it 100 times before. "Evening," he said. "Didn't think anyone was still open this late." Harris smiled. "Always open," he said, and the neon lights outside flickered one final time before going completely dark. I don't remember the moment it happened, when the sound of the bell faded and the world decided to keep repeating itself, but I remember the feeling. Like being stuck in a dream where every road leads back to the same intersection. That's what Red Valley had become, a loop. A circle drawn in dust and neon. The other me was still at the counter. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken, face lined like he'd aged years in a minute. Harris poured him coffee from a pot that never steamed. I stood in the doorway, frozen. The diner smelled of old grease and something metallic. Every light flickered at a slightly different rhythm, like the place was breathing. "You're new," Harris said without turning toward me, "but you're not first." He set 2 cups down, one in front of my double, one at the empty stool beside him. "Sit," he said. "Might as well meet yourself properly." My other self didn't react. He stirred his coffee with slow, mechanical movements. Then he spoke in a low voice that sounded almost detached. "You won't find the exit." "What?" I asked. "The more you drive, the more the road builds itself. Like a track under your tires. You'll pass the sign, the pumps, the diner. It'll all look a little different, but it's the same." I stared at him. "How long have you been here?" He laughed, quiet, broken. "Time doesn't work here. I think I used to have a name. Might have been yours." He looked up, and for a second I saw static shimmer across his eyes, like interference on a screen. I backed toward the door, but Harris's voice stopped me. "You think the road brought you here by accident?" He turned his head slowly, that permanent grin never moving. "The station finds the ones who stop listening to the world. Lonely drivers, empty frequencies." I shook my head. "You're not real." "Neither are you," Harris said. The lights dimmed. The windows turned black, reflecting only the three of us, the gas station man, the tired copy, and me. And in those reflections, I saw more shapes behind us. Rows of identical faces fading in and out, each sitting at a booth, each sipping from invisible cups. All of them me. The air turned cold. The clock above the counter began to spin backward. Every tick echoed like a heartbeat in reverse. Then my double stood. "It always ends the same," he said. "One of us tries to leave." He reached for the door. Harris didn't move. The bell rang once when he stepped through, and the world blinked. The diner vanished. I was standing on the highway again. Wind blowing through dead grass, stars overhead. My truck sat 20 feet away, headlights still on, engine idling. For a heartbeat, I almost believed I was free. Then I saw the sign. "Last gas for 50 miles. Red Valley Station. Brand new." Just like before, I climbed into the truck. The radio came alive on its own. No music, just a man's voice, flat and familiar. "You shouldn't stop here." My throat went dry. That was me, my own voice, looping through the static. I turned the volume down, but the words kept playing, muffled through the speakers, even when the radio was off. "He keeps them here. He keeps us here." I slammed the gas pedal. The desert blurred by, endless dark horizon ahead. But no matter how long I drove, the road never changed. Same cracked pavement, same mile markers. Then, in the distance, I saw headlights coming toward me. Relief hit first. Another car, finally. Another person. But as the lights drew closer, the shape of the vehicle sharpened. Same dented hood, same hanging bumper sticker. It was my truck, and behind the wheel, me. Face pale, eyes wide, mouth moving soundlessly, I swerved. Both trucks passed through each other like smoke. A burst of static ripped through the air, shaking the steering wheel in my hands. When the noise faded, the world went quiet again. Too quiet. The fuel gauge needle hit empty. The engine sputtered once, twice, and died. I coasted to a stop. Headlights flickered and went dark. Then the neon glow appeared ahead. Small, distant, familiar. Red Valley service. Open all night. I laughed. A low, hopeless laugh that didn't sound like mine anymore. The same bell rang somewhere in the distance. And through the static of the dead radio, my own voice whispered, "You're almost home." The desert doesn't sleep. It waits. Even when nothing moves, the air hums with a low vibration, like the world is holding its breath. That's what I felt as I sat in my dead truck on that endless road, staring at the glow ahead. The same red neon letters that had already burned themselves into my memory. Red Valley service. Open all night. I told myself it wasn't real. A mirage. A trick of exhaustion and heat. But the longer I stared, the more the glow pulsed, beating in time with my heart. I grabbed the flashlight from the passenger seat and stepped out. Sand crunched under my boots. The air was colder now, heavy with the smell of ozone, like the sky right before lightning strikes. The radio inside the truck popped once. Then again. Then the static returned. "Highway 19, a voice murmured through the hiss. "Stay on the signal." It was me again, my own voice, distorted, distant. I looked up and saw power lines stretching alongside the road. I hadn't noticed them before. Thick black cables running toward the glow ahead. And on every pole, something hung, old radios, wired together, their dials spinning on their own. They were broadcasting. The closer I walked, the louder the static became. It wasn't just coming from the radios anymore. It was in the ground, in the air, inside my chest. Each step hummed beneath my feet, as if the road itself carried current. I passed a rusted sign, half buried in sand. U.S. Highway 19. Closed since 1977. The same year the Red Valley station burned down. The glow brightened until I could see the outline of the station again. But this time it wasn't a building. It was an entire field of old neon signs, hundreds of them, rising from the desert floor like tombstones. Each one flickered a different message. "Fill her up, cold drinks, always open, welcome back." And at the center stood a single tower of light, made of tangled cables and shattered bulbs. Humming with that same impossible energy, the air smelled of dust and burning wires. A voice called out behind me. "You found the signal." I spun around. Harris stood a few feet away, his uniform glowing faintly from the light of the tower. He wasn't smiling anymore. His eyes were blank white like glass marbles. "What is this?" I asked. "What are you?" He tilted his head. "Once we were travelers, just like you. The broadcast keeps us alive." I stepped back. "Alive? You're ghosts?" He almost laughed. "Ghosts fade. We don't fade. We transmit." He raised his hand, pointing toward the tower. "Every soul that stops here becomes part of the frequency. The road collects them. The tower keeps them talking." The neon lights flickered faster. Voices began to spill from the air, male, female, old, young, all overlapping. Fragments of sentences, bits of memory. "I was driving home. There was fog on the road. Just needed gas. Open all night." Each voice echoed until they melted into static again. "You can still leave," Harris said softly. "All you have to do is drive without stopping." I looked back toward where my truck should have been. Nothing, only sand stretching into darkness. "You took my truck?" "No," he said. The road did. Lightning cracked across the horizon. For an instant, the sky lit up, and I saw them. Hundreds of figures standing in the desert, all facing the tower. Their bodies shimmered like heat waves, outlines only half real. And every one of them looked like me. "Copies," Harris said. "Recordings. The signal keeps playing until someone listens." The ground trembled. The tower's lights blazed white, and the air vibrated so violently I could feel it in my teeth. A deep tone pulsed through the earth, low, rhythmic, steady. "It's tuning," Harris whispered. I covered my ears, but the sound was inside my head now, each pulse syncing with my heartbeat. Images flashed behind my eyes, roads folding into themselves, radios bleeding static, the same neon words burning across the sky. Then I heard a whisper that wasn't mine. "You started it," Daniel's voice. The patient from the hospital story, the one who'd told me about the transmission. "You carried the signal out," he said. "Now it's growing." I fell to my knees. The sand beneath me was warm, humming. "How do I stop it?" I shouted. "You don't," Harris said. "You broadcast." The tower's light exploded upward, forming a column that pierced the clouds. Every sign in the field lit up at once, bathing the desert in crimson glow. Inside the hum, I heard thousands of voices in perfect unison. "We remain. We remember. We transmit." My skin burned cold, my vision stuttering in flashes of white and red. When the light finally dimmed, Harris was gone. The figures were gone. Only the empty field remained. Rows of dead signs, their bulbs shattered. No glow left at all. The silence was absolute. I stumbled forward until I found a single radio lying in the sand. Its dial was still spinning slowly. I picked it up, and for a moment I heard faint breathing through the static, my own. "If anyone hears this," my voice said, "the signal found you." Then the radio clicked off. The horizon brightened. Morning, maybe. But the sun didn't look right. Too white, too close. And stretching in front of me was the same road again. US Highway 19. My truck waited at the shoulder, engine running, driver's door open. I walked to it slowly, every step heavy with déjà vu. Inside, the fuel gauge was full. The radio light blinked. Last gas for 50 miles. I turned the key. The engine roared to life, and behind me faintly, the bell at Red Valley Station rang once, sharp and final. The road was quiet again. No voices, no hum, just the sound of my tires rolling over cracked asphalt. I don't remember starting the engine. I don't even remember getting back in the truck. But the headlights were on, the radio glowed softly, and the road stretched straight into the horizon, black and endless. The fuel gauge still read full. It always did. For a while, I just drove. The desert around me was motionless like a photograph. Even the stars didn't seem to move anymore. It should have been peaceful, but there was a noise beneath the silence. A faint rhythm, breathing maybe. I turned the radio knob, hoping for music or even static, but it didn't change the sound. The breathing was coming from the speakers, slow, calm, familiar. "You're almost home." My voice. I pulled over. Heart pounding. "Stop it," I whispered. "Just stop." But the voice kept going, steady, emotionless. "You drove too far. You stayed too long. You're part of it now." I yanked the radio from the dash. Wires sparked, plastic cracked. But the voice didn't stop. It grew louder, echoing through the air like the sound was leaking out of the world itself. "You were the first transmission," it said. I froze. "What do you mean?" Someone had to tell the story. The road shimmered in the headlights. Shapes began to form in the distance, figures, faint and flickering, like reflections on glass. At first, I thought they were the others, the copies I'd seen before. But as they came closer, I saw their faces. Not me this time. Different people, different lives. A woman in a yellow raincoat, a truck driver with mirrored sunglasses, a boy holding a cassette recorder, all walking toward me from the darkness, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you. We followed your voice. You brought us here." I stumbled back into the truck and slammed the door shut. The ignition didn't turn. The headlights flickered. Then the dashboard display blinked once, every gauge, every dial lighting up at once, and the radio came back to life on its own. The speaker hissed. Then a new sound emerged, an old recording, warped and grainy. My voice again, but younger, uncertain. "Testing. 1, 2. If anyone can hear this, I'm broadcasting from Red Valley Station. There's something here. I knew that recording. It was from the first night. The night I found the station. But I never broadcasted anything. At least, I didn't remember doing it. The figures outside stopped moving. They stood in a half circle around the truck, their faces illuminated by the flickering headlights. Each one tilted their head at the exact same angle. Each mouth opened in perfect unison. "Play it again." The truck's engine roared on its own. The tires screeched as the vehicle turned itself around, facing back toward the neon glow on the horizon. Red Valley Station, open all night. The road began to twist under me, bending like a ribbon caught in the wind. The landscape blurred, melting into streaks of red and black. The radio voice spoke again, quieter now, almost kind. "You were never driving. You were the story being told." The words sank deep, cold and heavy. "Every traveler hears you. You call to them through the static. You tell them what you saw. And when they listen long enough, they take your place." I tried to scream, but my voice came out as static, dry, hollow, fading. The road folded over itself, and suddenly I was standing outside again, flashlight in hand. The truck idled behind me. Ahead, the familiar sign glowed softly. Last gas for 50 miles, Red Valley service. The bell over the door chimed once. Harris smiled from behind the counter. "You're new," he said. "But you're not first." Everything froze. And then the world started over. The headlights appeared in the distance. The same tires on the same cracked road. The same man stepping out of the same truck. Only this time I watched it happen from the other side of the glass. From inside the diner. I opened my mouth to speak, but the only sound that came out was static. "Welcome back," Harris whispered. The bell chimed again. The lights flickered, and the transmission began to play.